Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know I'm not the usual happy-go-lucky personality that you're used to seeing on my channel. I didn't expect to be filming today. I wish I were filming in better circumstances. What I'm going to discuss is very raw and very real and very traumatic and still very fresh for me. I think it's important for me to not only share my story as a cautionary tale for other people who have been in my situation, but also I hope that I can help others who have been in my situation as well. And even if it's just a reminder of comfort and knowing that everything will be okay. As you can probably tell by the title, I had the worst possible day in my life in such a long time. 2 days ago, August 22nd, I was involved in a very major and serious car accident. If I'm being honest, it's been very traumatic, especially for myself. I never in a million years would have imagined this incident would ever happen to me, but it did. The past couple days have been really intense emotionally, but I thought it was important for me to share my story. But before I go into more details, I just want to give everyone a trigger warning, a disclaimer. If you don't like distressing content, or if you have been in a situation like this yourself, I would highly suggest clicking off this video if this is too much for you to handle. Before I go into more details about why this happened, how this happened, I want to give a bit of a backstory first, because I think that's important to tying together the pieces of what has transpired. I have been very grateful to have had cars in my life when I've needed them. I had two great reliable cars before. My very first one was a Honda CR-V, which I absolutely loved, but I ended up selling because I thought it was going to relocate, but that didn't end up happening. Then a year later, I was fortunate enough to buy my second car, which was a 1999 Honda Civic. A lot of people in my family love Hondas, so I was grateful to have those as like my first starter cars. Loved my Civic. I loved it so much. I had a stereo put in, installed. It was really such a great car to get to point A to point B. However, years ago, it was stolen out of my apartment complex, and the people who took my car destroyed its appearance. I ended up selling it shortly after because I didn't want to be reminded of what had happened. It was just too many bad memories associated with it. Ever since that point, I went about 3 years without having my own car. At the time, I was okay with making that sacrifice, especially because my mom and I were getting ready to move out of state. We've always done really well with sharing cars and making that work. Since I moved back to Arizona, I was taking rideshare to and from work and also relying on other people for rides or transportation, not just to work, but just anything I wanted to do. So naturally, over the summer, I got tired of living that lifestyle, and I decided I was ready to have a car again. I thought that was the best first step to regaining that freedom and independence that I hadn't had for so long. My mom was really helpful this time around with searching for a car. I always like buying pre-owned vehicles. I don't like the idea of making car payments. One day, my mom was working at one of her estate sale gigs. She works in the estate sale business currently. She was telling me that there were a couple cars for sale at one of the sales that she was working in a really nice neighborhood. The cars that were available were these two Lincoln. One was, I think, a Navigator and the other one was a town car. So my mom found this beautiful 2000 Lincoln town car that was absolutely perfect for me. Like when I looked at pictures of it, I immediately fell in love. I know for some people that kind of looks like a grandma car, and I could see that. However, I've always felt really safe driving those types of cars. I remember specifically when I was in high school, my mom owned a Mercury Grand Marquis, and this was around the time that I was just had gotten my license. So I absolutely loved driving that car. I felt super safe, super comfortable in it, and I was really excited to see that this car, this new one, was pretty much operating in the same function. I was especially excited to get this car because it looked super nice and luxurious, especially since it was a Cartier model. I knew right then and there I had to have it, so I asked my mom to help me buy it. I didn't have a lot of extra money to buy it on my own, which is what I would have liked to do. So we had my grandparents loan us the money so that my mom could get it for me. It was such an amazing feeling. The day that I bought the car was July 15th, and I remember that so vividly, and how excited I was to finally have that sense of freedom again, and even just like buy this car that was in great condition and just really something that was beautiful, just classic, timeless, unique. I just loved everything about this car. Some of you might name your cars. I ended up naming mine Shania because Shania is such a super unique name, and I thought that would be so perfect for such a unique car. Not to mention, I am a huge Shania Twain fan. Absolutely love her. As soon as I drove out of the parking lot of the house where the estate sale was taking place with Shania, I felt so excited, so free. I literally remember like turning on the radio and Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift was playing. It was just so surreal to even like say that, oh my gosh, this car is mine, because it had been so long since I had that feeling. It drove really well. It was such a beautiful drive home, and I was super excited to have this car, especially, as it helped me to get to and from work, and it gave me a lot more freedom to run little errands or go about town how I wanted to. So I will admit that I had some like reservations about keeping the car. I wasn't sure if it was because like I had gone without a car for so long and I just wasn't used to having one again. I don't know if it was like the added responsibility that I was taking on with getting this car, but my intuition is pretty strong, and most of the time I do follow it. Might have been a week and a half ago, I was really emotional one night, and I had second thoughts about whether or not I should sell my car. And so I talked to my mom about it, and I it's normal that, some of us do overthink certain things, and I'm sure in the moment, like, I was definitely overthinking and overreacting about it, probably not making sense. In that moment, I should have trusted my intuition and just decided to sell it. But after like having a couple days to think it over, I decided, okay, yeah, my freedom and independence is so important. I should just keep this car, just make the best of it. Especially since I live in such a big city where nothing's really walkable. So yeah, I decided to keep it. However, flashing forward to 2 days ago, the 22nd, it felt like it was any other normal day for me. I was in a good mood that morning because I got my financial aid money from school. So I wanted to treat myself to a smoothie from Tropical Smoothie Cafe. I actually first heard about that restaurant when I was in North Carolina, because I would get smoothies and wraps there, and it was definitely one of my favorite like healthy restaurants to go to back there. So when I saw that they opened a new location out in Phoenix, I was like, hell yeah, I definitely want to go. Looking back, I did not have anything prepared for breakfast that morning, so I thought normally I'd have something at home ready to go. I didn't have anything ready and I just didn't want to fuss with it. And so because I had to open at work, I was scheduled to go in at 8:30 that morning. And so I decided to leave a little bit early. Normally I'd leave about 10 minutes early because my work is so close to where I live. But I left a little bit early so I would have time to get to the smoothie place and get back to work. After I got my smoothie, I barely even had like a full sip of it, but I decided to turn out of the plaza and head towards work. And so after the plaza that I was at, it was located towards like a really big intersection. I was getting ready to turn left at this particular intersection. The only problem with this particular street area is that there are no left-hand turning arrows. There's no green arrows on the lights, which will make more sense later on. I was in the left-hand turning lane. I had turned out of the plaza and went into the left lane, and I was waiting my turn for all these cars to come past me so that I could get ready to turn. I was waiting for a little bit and I started to inch out there once I thought the cars were slowing down. However, at that moment, the light was like green, but as soon as I got out to turn, the light was yellow. So in that moment, I was trying to make my best judgment on when to turn. I was under the impression that people would start slowing down. And because my car was so long, it took a little bit longer for, you know, for the engine to move so that like I could turn, because it's a very long and wide car. As I was turning, this blue pickup truck comes out of nowhere towards my direction. I did not see him coming. As soon as I saw a slight indication of what was going to happen, I tried to swerve out of the way. I was hit on my rear passenger side. First, I thought I was turning left. Next thing I knew, I was spinning around. I don't know how many times. It all happened so fast. As soon as the car stopped, I was still in the intersection, but in front of oncoming traffic on the other direction. Honestly, it was extremely scary. I literally felt like my life was flashing before my eyes. None of it felt real. I was in shock. It took me a minute to really understand what happened. I remember as I was being spun around, the airbags deployed. I mean, thankfully it wasn't too close to my face. At least I was sitting far enough away from the steering wheel for that point. I remember the smell of smoke. I was so distraught. I'm gonna do my best to talk about this without crying, so just hang in there with me. As soon as I felt the car stop, this very, very nice man who was a passerby and had witnessed the accident, he came up to me, asked me if I was okay, and I was so distraught. I was so in shock. I was crying. I was hyperventilating. I was scared. I was really, really scared. And so I didn't know if I had any physical trauma. I didn't know what was going on. And he called 911 for me, which I am very thankful for because I was so distraught. Once that happened, I called my boss to let her know that I couldn't come in to open the store. She was very understanding. My mom, I called her soon after that. So once I was on the phone with my mom, she instructed me to move the car to a safe spot so it wasn't in the middle of traffic. However, I tried to turn the ignition and get it to drive. I tried to get it to go, but it wasn't moving. And I was like, what's going on? I gathered my things. I got out of the car. And as soon as I got out, I was shocked to see that the passenger side rear was completely destroyed. There was shards of glass from the window that were shattered all across the road. And my tire on that side came right off. I don't know where it went in the middle of the road, but it was really, really jarring to see that happen. So as I'm on the phone with my mom, the police show up and ask me questions. And I'm also following my mom's directions on the phone. There were a couple random strangers who were trying to get information from me by asking me questions. I was doing everything in my power to avoid them, which was hard. Trying to remain calm and give my best account to the police officers on what happened. They were able to get my license and registration, but I still needed to give them my insurance information. So as soon as I called my mom, my grandma was on the way. She was the first to get there, and she was basically consoling me in that moment. And then shortly after, my mom came with the insurance information, and I was just hysterical. I was crying my eyes out. I know that they were both telling me like how grateful they were that I was okay. The situation at hand wasn't worse. After all that happened, my boyfriend called me and I talked to him and explained to him what happened, because I know when I texted him, he was really concerned. So I just let him know what happened. Then after a little while, one of the police officers came back and he talked to all of us, my mom, my grandma, and I. He let me off with just a citation because I was the one who was turning left. I didn't look ahead of time to see if it was clear, but I was offered to take traffic school to avoid going to court next month. It was very, very traumatic to not only see my car being totaled and no longer salvageable. I never would have anticipated that I would ever be in an accident like that and in that severity. I don't understand it, because I've always been cautious, I've always been safe, but I also hate turning left anywhere where there's no left turn arrow. I went through confirms all of that. But then when I was thinking about all the other possible scenarios, I'm really, really thankful that I wasn't hurt severely or the other people involved weren't hurt. If something happened to either one of us, I would not forgive myself. And thinking about the severity of the accident, it's a very, very traumatic thing because I was so close to death. I strongly believe that the car I was in, it saved my life. If I was in any other car, it would have been a lot worse, I'm sure. As you can probably imagine, it's been very difficult for me emotionally, mentally, and also physically. The only injuries that I sustained from the accident were some first-degree burns on my arm from the airbag deploying. I also had my left ear ringing after the accident, and I've also noticed that I have some sensitivity in my left ear and jaw. So much so that sometimes it can be hard to open my mouth really wide or chew on food. It's still there, but it's definitely better than it was. Since this all happened, I have been experiencing some PTSD-like symptoms. The day of the accident was probably the worst because I couldn't talk about what happened without crying. I was really depressed. I was going through a lot of feelings that I did not expect to feel, especially feelings that I haven't felt in 10 years. I was really angry with myself for what happened. Even though I can't go back and change the past, this could have been easily avoided and I could have done so much differently. However, in that moment, I was so focused on making sure I got to work on time. And if I would have just waited a little bit longer at that light and really just assess whether or not it was safe to go, none of this would have happened. I was so bad in my depression that I was literally questioning why I was still here. With everything I went through and how much worse my accident could have been, I shouldn't be alive. That's what my thought process was. Thanks to the support of my family, my close friends, my boyfriend, I've been reminded that I do have a purpose in this life. I can't even begin to express into words how grateful I am to be alive and for that car saving my life. I know that God, the universe, whatever higher powers you believe in, I was protected by that higher power. I know I have a purpose. I know I have people who love and care about me. I am just really happy that I have kind of a second chance at life, because even though I couldn't see it in the beginning, I know that this is going to make me a much stronger person than I ever was before. And even though getting into an accident was my worst fear, and I do have a heightened fear of driving because of what I just went through, doesn't mean I'm never gonna drive again. It just means, for whatever reason, I was supposed to learn a lesson from this. The past couple days, it's been really hard for me to determine what that lesson has been. Yes, there's a few different things that I have been able to take away from this process. I just want to remind everyone, please do yourself a favor, and no matter what happens, be safe on the road. Really make sure that if you're turning left, that it's safe enough to do so, and keep an eye out for that person trying to get away with running a red light. Also, never take anything for granted. Never take the time that you have for granted. Never take your personal possessions. Never take any memories. Never take anything in life for granted. Things come and go, but your memories and your experiences will stay with you forever. This experience has changed me in ways that I can't even put into words right now. I thought I would never be the same person that I used to be before this. This experience has reminded me of how much I've been able to overcome in my life, and I still have a purpose. I still have ways that I can make a difference in other people's lives. I was listening to a guided meditation from one of my favorite spiritual gurus named Lavender, and the one that I was listening to was about healing. She made a really good point in that video in saying that sometimes life gives us really big experiences, and depending on how difficult the experience is, it gives us a bigger lesson to be learned. Another lesson that I've learned in this process is not even worry about trying to hurry anywhere. Doesn't matter if it's work, school, whatever the case, it's not worth it to rush into anything. Your safety is so much more important than worrying about whether or not you're gonna make it to work on time. For those who have been in a similar experience to me, it's not the end of the world. We will get through this together, and it will get better. Even though sometimes it might not always feel that way, we're only going to get better from here. That being said, thank you guys so much for listening. I really needed to get all of this off of my chest so that I can begin the process of healing and moving forward in the best possible direction. For those of you who have stuck by me since day one, thank you also for being here and really being a source of love and support during this difficult time. I also want to extend a huge thank you to my family, my closest friends, my boyfriend, for showing me their love, support. Even though they can't understand my trauma, thank you for just allowing me to know that I feel loved and supported and cherished. That is something I am forever grateful for. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, stay sassy, and sending you all love and light.